Welcome everyone. This is Frank Tamora, the author of the book entitled The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, and you're at my YouTube channel, the End Times Research Ministry channel. And I'd like to connect some dots today for you, because I do know that there are many people who are not reading the scriptures, and a lot of people are going to be left in the dark when all these prophecies take place. So let me connect the dots between what the Lord warned about the last days and what is actually happening. Keep in mind, what I'm going to be presenting today is just a microcosm of a huge picture of all of the prophecies that are being fulfilled in our generation. In Matthew chapter 16 verse 3, the Lord told us this: "You know how to interpret the weather signs in the sky, but you don't know how to interpret the signs of the times." In our generation, just like the generation that Jesus was facing, they don't know the signs of the times, primarily because they're not studying the Word of the Lord. But if they did, and they knew what most of the Christians who are studying and keeping on the watch know, they would be on their tiptoes looking for the Lord Jesus Christ, because we know that the time is drawing short before the second visitation of the Lord Jesus Christ, when He's going to come for His church. So let me show you something that's very important to prophecy in these last days. One thing we definitely know for sure is that the prophecy clock is ticking down, and it's moving faster and faster. How do we know this? Because in Mark 13:8, the Lord told us in the last days we would be experiencing the signs as birth pangs. In other words, the intensity of what is happening is going to get much worse until it's delivered. And when we talk about being delivered, we're talking about the Lord fulfilling His promise of removing the church out of the way, and then a period of 7 years of hell will be breaking out on this planet. And the Lord has given us all the signs to look for, so that we would know that the church was going to be rescued out of the way, and then that time, the time period that He has set in place, would finally begin to go off, and the 7-year period, known as the tribulation period, would begin. Now I'm going to move right into Revelation chapter 9 verses 14 through 16. This is a prophecy that has to deal with two things. Number one, we're told there's going to be this massive army that will be coming in the last days, and this massive army would number a certain amount of people. Let's take a look. It said to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, "Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates." So right there we're talking about looking at signs of what's going to happen at the Euphrates River. And it goes on, "And the 4 angels who had been kept ready for the very hour and day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. The number of mounted troops was 200 million. I heard their number. So let's understand what's being told here. Watch the Euphrates River, because something is going to happen to the Euphrates River. There's going to be a massive army, 200 million soldiers from the east. We know this for sure. These are the facts that we know for sure. Now, let's take another look at Revelation chapter 16 now, in verse 12. And again, this is a message from Jesus Christ that John, the youngest apostle, wrote down. "The 6th angel poured out his bowl on a great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up to prepare the way for the kings from the east." So here we go. We know the Euphrates River in the last days, when this huge army is numbered, the Euphrates River is going to dry up. And it's going to dry up to prepare for this massive battle. Now, if we are definitely in the last generation, we should see both of these signs come to fruition. The army that numbers 200 million soldiers from the east, and then the Euphrates River drying up. So let's take a look. So let me start off by saying, who is ISIS? Well, ISIS is the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or is known as ISIS. I want to give you a little bit of background news that I put together for you so that you know who these people are, or ISIS, if you will. I'm going to give you a ABC News, and they're talking about, let me lift this up for you a little bit, life under ISIS, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria. So you'll understand why I'm giving you this information when I get into the meat of the material for this article that just came out concerning the Euphrates River.
Smuggled video and accounts given to Amnesty International have provided a rare snapshot of the workings of the radical group, the Islamic State in Iraq and Syria, or ISIS as it's known. The group wants to form an Islamic State and has imposed strict rules in the Iraqi and Syrian regions that it's taken over. With aspirations to expand into Lebanon, ISIS has become a stumbling block for Western diplomats looking for a way to intervene in the Syrian civil war. The ABC's Tim Palmer has this glimpse of life under ISIS rule.
I like listening to music. I also like to listen to the Quran. But this Islamic State has forbidden music. Cigarettes have been banned. Anyone seen holding a pack of cigarettes will get a couple of lashes. If they find a place selling cigarettes, they'll burn their entire inventory, put him, the seller, in jail and give him the lash.
These are among the very few accounts of life under a new government that's imposed itself across key areas of Syria and Iraq, the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS. In cities like Raqqa in Syria, black banners have been going up announcing ISIS is now running an Islamic State there. For foreign journalists, coverage there is now nearly impossible. In this smuggled video, civilians hiding their faces tell of a life without music, pictures or games.
After the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria occupied Raqqa, they imposed many things on us, one of which is the niqab. Many women have received lashes and have even been executed for not wearing the niqab. These things have been forced on us through the power of the sword. People have now either to wear the veil or be executed.
Even more disturbing are the accounts of ISIS's justice system. Masked men snatch people from the street, and in the prisons they're taken to, the accounts of torture, summary trials and executions are dreadful.
Once, after the detainee was flogged over 150 times, the Sharia court judge looked up at the jailers who were flogging him and said, "It's as if you've become sympathetic to him," and then took the whip himself and started flogging him with all his strength.
A man asked me, "How are you?" When I said I was okay, he gave me an electric shock. This was the first of many electric shocks, which continued for about 40 minutes until my muscles started seizing up. The man ordered me to stand up, but I couldn't. They pulled me up to stand, but I kept on falling. I was screaming throughout. They then put a rope through my cuffs and pulled me up, while tightening the rope to the pipes on the ceiling. My shoulder couldn't bear the weight of my body, and it broke.
In one case, among the many documented by Amnesty International, a 12-year-old boy is flogged with more than 100 lashes. Another man, set for release, makes a joke about the Islamic judge in his case and is beheaded. ISIS formed, drawing fighters previously affiliated with Al-Qaeda in Iraq and al-Nusra in Syria, but the movement has been disowned by Al-Qaeda since. That hasn't stopped its military success. In Iraq, ISIS broke into the notorious Abu Ghraib prison, freeing 500 sympathisers, and in the new year it took control of Ramadi and the scene of America's bloodiest battle of the Iraq occupation, Fallujah, where it's now declared an Islamic State. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says the group is now the most powerful force in that country's north. Its fighters, including foreigners from places like Chechnya, Morocco and Saudi Arabia, have been merciless towards other factions fighting the Assad government. The success of ISIS has formed an uncomfortable alliance between Islamic anti-Assad forces and the Free Syrian Army, trying to push back the new third force. But as with Iraqi government offensive against ISIS there, while some territory's been regained, ISIS retains control of the major centres it's won, and it crystallises the dilemma for Western nations as they prepare for another round of so far anemic peace talks in Geneva, where the West's key problem has been how it could intervene in Syria without any military support falling into the wrong hands.
Tim Palmer with that report.
So there you have it. Now you know what ISIS is all about. And what we do know is ISIS is very, very active in this area right now. And the reason why I'm showing you about ISIS is because ISIS is in control of what's going on with the Euphrates River, as you're going to be seeing. Now, before I get to the meat of the material here, I want to present this article that came out from the Telegraph talking about ISIS, the people that you just heard on this radio report that I just played for you. The title to this report, U.S. secretly backs rebels to fight al-Qaeda in Syria. And the sources tell the Telegraph that America is backing friendly rebels with millions in cash and non-lethal aid to take on extremists in Syria. And you can see now that I've highlighted the blue area, look what it says. The United States and Gulf countries have been secretly backing efforts by opposition rebels to destroy al-Qaeda's most extreme wing in Syria. Diplomats and rebels involved in the plan have told the Telegraph. As Western leaders publicly push the Syrian regime and the opposition to Geneva II peace conference that begins Wednesday, Washington has already been quietly supporting moves by Saudi Arabia and Qatar to give weapons and cash to rebel groups to fight al-Qaeda's Islamic State of Iraq and al-Sham's ISIS in Syria. So you know that President Barack Obama has been giving money, allocating huge amounts of money to al-Qaeda, who are trying to dispose the regime of Bashar al-Assad. And ISIS is behind many of the allocations that the president is giving this money to. It's falling in the hands of ISIS, and they're going after Assad's regime. So knowing this, I want to bring to your attention this news report that was just released. Now this is the news story that has come to us from the Middle East. A new Turkish aggression against Syria. Anchorage suspends pumping Euphrates water. And you'll see here is the picture of Lake Assad, and you can see how much it's already gone down, this water level here. And it says, 2 weeks ago, the Turkish government once again intervened in the Syrian crisis. This time was different from anything it had attempted before, and the repercussions of which may bring unprecedented catastrophes unto both Iraq and Syria. Violating international norms, the Turkish government recently cut off the water supply of the Euphrates River. Get this now, folks. Look at this. Completely. In other words, they stopped it completely. The flow of the water from the Euphrates River has been stopped. Do you understand what's going on here? Jesus warned us that in the last days the Euphrates River would run dry. So keep that in mind. Moving on, it says this. In fact, Ankara began to gradually reduce pumping Euphrates water about a month and a half ago, then cut it off completely 2 weeks ago. So again, the Euphrates River runs dry. Exactly what the Lord said would happen in the last days. And there is no other generation ever that could be able to do such a thing. All right? So according to information received by Al-Akbar. Now, a source who spoke on the condition of anonymity revealed that water levels in Lake Assad, a man-made water reservoir in the Euphrates, recently dropped by 6 meters from its normal levels, which means losing millions of cubic meters of water. The source warned that a further drop of 1 additional meter would put the dam out of service. And what this does is cause major problems in Syria and Iraq. And if they don't have water, what comes next? They're going to be fighting over the water. And the Lord told us, the nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, wars, rumors of wars, and the water war would be one of those components that would fulfill prophecy. Now, the reason why I gave you ISIS is for this. Look at this. The Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, ISIS, controlling the region the dam is located in, did not suspend the water output. Employees of the General Institute of the Euphrates Dam are running the lake under the supervision of, get this now, Al-Qaeda-linked ISIS. So you have the people who were fighting Bashar al-Assad regime in Syria are in control of this dam that is causing the Euphrates River to run dry. See, these people are so extreme. They don't care who they hurt. They don't care who doesn't get the water. They don't care at all. They have an agenda, and that agenda is to propagate Islam in all of its assets too. So what we know is by their actions, Bible prophecy is being fulfilled. No question about it. So what we know is the clock is moving and it's counting down to that special day. So when the timing is right to fulfill Jesus' prophecy concerning the Euphrates River, it will be dry. Now keep in mind, Jesus is holding back this army for the very specific time. And again, going back to listen to what Jesus said, and the 4 angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. And again, that was taken from Revelation chapter 9, verse 15. Now, whether the intense heat from the sun dries up the river or Turkey stops the flow, one way or the other, this army will cross this river exactly as Jesus warned. Now, in closing this section, just let me say this. It's very, very difficult to find any mainstream news coming out of the United States that has been reporting on the Euphrates River running dry because of what Al-Qaeda, those operatives of Al-Qaeda or ISIS, are doing. And it is very, very important news that should be broadcast everywhere because it's going to affect millions and millions of people. If they don't release the flow of that water, you can guarantee that we're going to see more violence in the Middle East, Syria, Iraq, and those people who are getting thirsty will begin to fight to reclaim the water coming down the Euphrates River. So let's keep on the watch. Let's watch what's going on. But one thing we do know, this generation is fulfilling prophecy, either by technology through the dam where Turkey can shut the flow of the water off completely as you just saw, or whether the droughts can continue on. And either case, people will be walking over the Euphrates River just like the Lord said. Now when you read my book, and if you've come to my live presentations, you'll see the pictures where people are already walking across the Euphrates River. And again, no other generation could see anything like this until this generation came along, and we are the chosen generation who will be seeing Jesus Christ in the last days. Now, I'd like to invite you to go over to my website. You see the link there at the bottom. Go to the link and read my book, the documentation in that book. Because if you don't know Jesus Christ, and you want to see if he's real, if you want to see if his prophecies are coming to pass, just like this prophecy about the Euphrates River, you can have the book today for free by clicking the link at my site. God bless.